I'm Kenny Burgle. Thanks for coming, you guys. You're at a great night. First of all, we're doing a live web broadcast for So Scream Loudly. And everybody, and you can text your guys that they can watch it live right now at sweetwater.com under live events. It's awesome. Anybody who's been here for the first time? Who's here for the first time? Awesome. Thank you. And thank everybody for being here. You guys are why we're here. And of course, Stu Hamm is why you guys are here. And we're going to get there. It's really awesome. But first, I do want to say, please don't. Has anybody been to Gear Fest before? Please come 21st and 22nd in a couple weeks. It's going to be awesome. Tons of bass players. Check the website for all the great stars and workshops and stuff. It's going to be just awesome. Stu asked that there wouldn't be any flashes tonight and also no video. They are going to, although, like I said, we're videoing the whole thing, and when you get home, at some point, you'll be able to see it on the screen as well. And really, I don't really need to introduce Stu Hamms, one of the most recorded bass players in life. He's with Steve Vai and Eric Johnson, Satriani, The Urge, I'm missing on and on and on. It's just tremendous. And what's really, really cool about this is I want to immediately thank Washburn Guitars. It's our new line. Let's give it a hand for Washburn. Beautiful basses and guitars. We finally are carrying Washburn. It's really cool. Fact is, you guys probably know Greg Baum, one of our local guys in the retail store. He was a luthier for Washburn for many years, actually. So we're very proud to have Washburn on board at Sweetwater, and they're great. So, that said, without any further ado, let's give it up. A warm Fort Wayne welcome for Mr. Stu Hamm. Come on, Stu. Here he comes.
Hey.
Here he comes.
What's going on?
Oh my. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Good going.
Yeah, man. And rock on.
Hey, guys, what's up? Thank you for coming this evening. It's good to see you all, even though I can't see you. And hello to all the friends over there on the World Wide Web. How exciting. My name is Stu, and I play the bass. So I'm going to play my basses and tell some stories and take some questions, and we'll take it from there, if that's all right with y'all. Is all right? All right. I'd like to open with an old English drinking song that was popularized by Jimi Hendrix. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Woo. That's just the old Star Spangled Banner, America the Beautiful, We Will Rock You medley that everyone's starting their shows with these days. Okay, I'm just going to get warmed up if you don't mind. So, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Thank you. In fact, when you come into New Orleans on I-10, they have a big sign that says, "Welcome to New Orleans, birthplace of jazz and Stu Hamm." Doesn't really say that. But I was born there. Left when I was 3 years old and moved to... Anyone here know where I grew up, actually? Okay, it's a big secret. San Francisco, no. Maybe I came of age there, but I certainly didn't grow up there. Now, my father was a very well-known musicologist. I come from a family of musicians. My mom was an opera singer and a voice teacher. And my father was a very well-known musicologist. He wrote a number of books on the history of popular music in America, and was president of the American Musicology Association, and a poker-playing buddies of John Cage's. So when I was a young guy, I used to go mushroom hunting with John Cage and Merce Cunningham, and take my little plastic army man and put him between the strings of the piano for him to play his prepared piano pieces. So I had no chance of turning out normally. My oldest brother, Bruce, played guitar, and then he moved to India, and he now plays sarod, which is like a fretless sitar that you play with your fingernails, and he runs the Ali Akbar Khan School of Indian Music in Berkeley, California. He's a great musician. And we have another brother, too, but we don't talk about him that much. He teaches Chinese literature at the University of Washington. We love him anyway. But when I was 3, my dad got a job at the University of Illinois. So we moved to Champaign-Urbana. And as much as I often say that I grew up in Vermont, I'm from Vermont, I really spent my formative years in Champaign, which is, as you know, the land of opportunity if you're a tractor. So it is often very nice to come back to the Midwest, and it feels very homey. This piece I'm playing here is a title track from my last record called Just Outside of Normal, because my mother was actually from Normal, Illinois. And growing up in Champaign, we didn't have a lot to do. Summer jobs, detasseling corn, right? Raise your hand if it rings a bell, right? Okay, now anyone here, raise your hands if you ever lived with your parents. Anyone here who ever lived with their parents, raise your hand. And I thought I was jet-lagged. We used to collect headlines from the newspaper, like normal man marries odd-long woman. It's a town called Locust, Illinois. Locust man hit by car. Big flapping wings. So, but it turns out that my mom, when she was growing up in Normal, Illinois, my granddad was a farmer, had a farm in Farmer City, Illinois. But her boyfriend was Fred Funk from Funk's Grove, Illinois. I could have been Stuart Funk. But alas, it was not meant to be. So, I was exposed to lots of different music early on, from being in plays to my brother dragging me to see Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I think the first concert I ever saw was Frank Zappa. And then I went to, see Sun Ra and his Solar Myth Orchestra 5 nights in a row. And we saw the Stones, and B.B. King was opening for them at the Assembly Hall. And they were 5 hours late, and we all thought it was because they were at Paul's funeral. God, I'm dating myself, aren't I? Half the crowd's going, what? Paul, wasn't he in the Wings? Anyway. So So people often ask me why I play bass. They say, Stu, why do you play bass? And there are a couple stories, and there's a kernel of truth in every one. So when I was growing up in Champaign, I was kind of a pudgy red-haired geek who played flute, got beat up all the time. It's right when Johnny Cash's hit A Boy Named Sue was out. Thank you, Johnny. See what happened to him. He died. And so, who was my role model for pudgy red-haired geeks in like 1972? Danny Bonaducci, folks, my hero, and one of the greatest bass players ever born. Because if you go back and you watch some of the old Partridge Family shows, they'll be playing a song like I Woke Up in Love This Morning, Went to Sleep with You on My Mind. And if you'll notice, Danny's hand never leaves this root position for the whole song. And I hate to say it, I've been playing bass for 40 years now, and I find I still have to troublingly move this hand up and down the neck. And one day there was a rock band set up in the tennis courts at Eisner Park, which was a big deal. And they went down there, and the bass player had a red sparkly bass with a white curly barbecue cord into one of those custom amps with the naugahyde sides and chrome portholes. And I went, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. So I asked for a bass for Christmas, and in 1973 I got my first bass. It was a red one, an Alvarez pawn shop special. And I put a Silver Surfer sticker on the headstock, predating my Surfing with the Alien days. But the really reason I started to play was that, as you know, in the Midwest, thank God the high school band programs are great. And in Champaign Central, where I went, were the perennial state champions in what they called stage band, because couldn't call it jazz band in 1972. It was much too risque. So even in my junior high school, we had 3 levels of jazz bands. And by the time I was 13, I was, sight reading big band charts and everything. And it was a great experience growing up in the Midwest. And then when I was 18, I went to Boston, Massachusetts to go to music school. And that was a great experience because I lived in Vermont for a few years after that, a very small town in Vermont. So small that I had to go across the Connecticut River to New Hampshire to go to high school. And I was the only guy in the Upper Valley that played bass, and I had all the cool gigs, ski resorts. I was a senior in high school playing in a Dartmouth College frat band. Wow, it was so awesome. And then I go to Berkeley, and there were 2 other bass players in the same floor that I was on. One was the guy by the name of Baron Brown, who plays with Jean-Luc Ponty and Vital Information and Billy Cobham. And the other was a guy by the name of Victor Bailey, who went on to replace Jocko on the Weather Report. So it was a little intimidating at first, but what a great way to grow up. And the second week I was there in Boston, I heard people telling stories about this new guitar player. He was a freshman as well. And the story about him was that he was supposed to be a great guitar player, but also every time he played, he would blow up his amplifier. So I was 18 years old, and I said, that's the second coolest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. I've got to meet this guy. So I found out where he was playing. There's a big crowd of people, and I said, who is that? And they said, well, that's little Stevie Vai. Here's the part of the show where we see if I can play in 7 and speak at the same time. So Steve and I had a band called Axis. And I played on his audition tapes for Frank Zappa. And Steve moved to California to join Frank Zappa's band. And I went on the road with an Elvis Presley impersonator. What? What? His name was L. John, because his name was John. Get it? L. John. That's stupid. And it was during the disco era, so it wasn't that bad. Certainly better for me than the drummer. And we played, I don't know, 3 dance sets and 3 shows a night for $200 a week in Holiday Inns in Morgantown, West Virginia. And then I quit the Frank Zappa band in a dispute over money, or a woman, I can't remember which it was. And I moved back to Boston, and for the first time in my life I was broke. I was working at this place called the White Hen Pantry, where I'd sell sandwiches from midnight to 8, and we'd get robbed, and my bass got stolen. It was just, it was miserable. Best years of my life. So I was going to give it up and move to DC and get a job in a shoe store. You know, what size? Size 12? We have that. Like, would you like black? Exactly. Thank you. Give that man a free T-shirt. So, and then the last minute, I got a call from Steve Vai, and he said that he'd quit Frank Zappa's band and was going to do this record called Flexible. And did I want to move to California? He'd give me bus fare, and I could sleep in his studio on the couch, and he'd pay me $10 a week. So I thought about moving in with my mom or moving in with Steve Vai, and well, guess what happened? So I literally got on a bus with my bass and my amp and a suitcase of clothes, and ended up in California. So here's another track from the new record. It's not a song I wrote, but it's a beautiful tune that I play when I travel. I've been in California now for, I can't remember how many years. I was in Southern California, then I was in Northern California, and I went back down to Southern California. And it's a song I play when I travel and I feel lonely. But tonight I want to play it for my neighborhood. I live in Santa Monica, and last Friday was just a really awful day. I was about 3 blocks away when it happened. My daughter was, it was her last day of 8th grade, and then they had a lockdown. And but everything was fine, and the 8th grade dance continued as well. So, but this goes for my compadres back in California. Thank you. Whew. So I'd like to say thanks to Nick and Jenny and Jeff and the board, all the guys here at Sweetwater for having me out here. And the reason I'm here is to promote my line, or family, if you will, of Stu Hamm Washburn basses. And the way this came about was I had been playing their acoustics for many years. And I loved the sound of them, but what amazed me was that no one had made an acoustic bass guitar where you could intonate the bridge or just the action. You know, most of them just have like an acoustic guitar, a little bone across there. And unless I can get the action just right and intonate it so it's in tune, I had a real hard time playing any of my solo stuff on an acoustic. So I got together with Nick Ellingsworth and Terry Atkins, two of the designers at Washburn, and this is what we came up with. And it's a great sound of bass. I'm going to play a little bit of it for you now. I use this bass a lot when I record, and people don't even know that it's an acoustic bass, because it just has so much resonance to it. don't know how I got to Mercy, Mercy in the key of C, but I'm just kind of playing. I like those big fat whole notes. They sound good. So when I saw how well the acoustic had come out, I talked to the guys about maybe doing a line of electrics. And it worked out really well for me because, whoa! I'll bet it's still in tune though. Okay, let's see. The E string was a little flat to begin with, so let's take that into account. Close enough. Okay. Nick, where's that stagehand? Wasn't there some person supposed to put my stuff away for me? I'm obviously unqualified to. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I've been, playing bass for 40 years. I've encountered a number of physical issues in playing bass, and when I teach, and it's one of the main things I stress is ergonomics and posture and the proper attitude of warming up and breathing and stuff. So one of the main things I did was when we designed these line of basses was design basses that were much lighter than basses that I'd played and a lot of other basses. The heaviest bass I ever played was, once with Satriani we opened up for Iron Maiden, and I picked up Steve Harris's bass, and it weighed like 40 pounds, man. Had all this brass and leather on it. It was just ridiculous. So they're very light basses. The US model, I worked very closely with Rob Turner from EMG to work on the pickups. We've got the requisite jazz pickup in the bridge position, and then we put the soap bar up by the neck to get a really fat sound. We'll get to that one. And a piezo on the bridge. And then the guys at Washburn did a great job of doing these import models at different price points. So this one is the SB30, that means Stu Bass 30. A little industry secret, I'll let you know. And this bass I think retails for like $299. And it's a nice sound of bass, so I'm gonna play a little bit of it and see what we can get going. It's so sparkly too, isn't it? I like it. So the next model we have, the SB40, this is passive, by the way. Two in a row. Thank you. So this guy's got active pickups in it. And Oh, yeah. That's that J pickup, and of course you've got, oh yeah, it's got a little juice to it. Thank you. Hey, I'm going to take a few questions now. So you can ask me anything you want, except who plays faster, Steve or Joe? Because the answer is Yngwie anyway. So, hey, what can I say? So I think we have a couple guys that are going to walk down the aisles with labs, you know, little microphones, since we're live on the web, that we can have all this going on. So, are we waiting for mics? We are. Here we go. Gentleman right down here.
Can you play the Peanuts theme?
I can.
Will you? Will you play the
I
Peanuts
will.
theme?
Yes, I will. I absolutely will. What would the show be without me playing the Peanuts thing? I hope there are more questions because I'm thirsty. So, get a guy up front here. Hey man, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? You sounded great tonight.
Oh well, thank you.
I got a question for you on the Guitar Survival Guide.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play guitar on that or?
Oh no.
Ah.
No, you don't want to hear me play guitar. No, I think that was one of the first Mike Varney records I did, and you probably know more than I do. Who plays guitar on the tracks that I play on? Do you know?
You know what? I got the CD and it was just a front. There was no information at all in it.
Sounds like an MP3.
Well, it was in a. Actually, I think I got it at a garage sale.
I'll find out and I'll post it on Facebook tomorrow or whenever I get home, which I think is Friday.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Young man, will you get over here? Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I heard your interview with Chris Juicy based on the broadband. Actually, I woke up to it. But you were talking about challenging yourself, I guess, as a musician. There was a piece at the end that was like a classical piece. Are you trying to learn to play that, or?
Oh, I think it was Chris. That was a great day. We recorded it at Brian Brombrick's house, and you know who else was there? Was Bakitu Kumalo, and Bakitu and I were hanging out. And he was asking about my major influence as a musician, as a bass player. And my favorite musician of all time is a Canadian pianist by the name of Glenn Gould. Does anybody know who Glenn Gould is here? There you go. If you haven't checked him out, go play it immediately. He was out of his mind, but he was, I don't know, man, what really gets me off is hearing one person play their instrument solo. You know, that's why you notice when I'm up here doing this, there's no loops, there's no effects, it's really just kind of me and my fingers. And no compression. I'm trying to tell a story. And Glenn Gould was just, man, I don't know, when I played piano, I always found that Bach's music was kind of mathematical. And when you hear Glenn Gould play it, it's like the direct line from God or something. It's so beautiful. And he had the most incredible technique and just perfect clarity between every note. When he's playing the 3 and 4 part inventions, it's like a player piano. And on top of that, he just has the most, I don't know, man, I get chills just thinking about it. And I can go days with listening to nothing but Glenn Gould play Goldberg variations. So what I'm chasing after, his tone though, was just so absolutely crystal clear. And the sound that I'm getting for that these basses help me get is, a nice clear tone that still sounds like a bass and doesn't sound like, all those Mark bass playing guys and it's still kind of, my sound's about here. And I could never play like Glenn Gould, but it's certainly something to aspire to. Just his integrity and his clarity. So you should check him out. And he was out of his mind. He was known for being a really bad driver. And one of my favorite quotes of his was, he said, yes, of course I've ran a lot of red lights, but I've also stopped for a lot of green lights that no one gives me credit for. So, a bunch of great movies. Check him out. He's my most inspiring musician. Thanks for asking.
What techniques are good for a new bass player?
What's are?
What are techniques?
What are good techniques? Well, main techniques you got to learn are just listening, get a good teacher. The thing that I teach in my series, thanks, good lead-in, actually this is a plant in the crowd because you'll get your cut. I have for sale after I have a bunch of copies of my new record just outside of Normal. And I have a series of 4 instructional videos that I did, and I spent some time as an educator, in a couple different universities I've taught in San Francisco. And it's just, you go back to it, but you got to start with a proper technique. Is really what I preach. I do have a video called Bass Basics, which starts at the real beginning. It's basically, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and if she would listen to me and I could teach her bass, it would be how I teach her bass. But there's not much chance of that happening. But the kind of the thing that I teach is that I see a lot of guys playing, or girls or kids, and they're kind of flopping all around like this. And number one, they're leaving out their pinky, right? And then you're leaving out the most, 1/4 of the digits that our good Lord gave us to play bass, right? So the whole idea when you play is to make it easy on yourself. And I learned this from Jeff Berlin. He gave me a few lessons. And if I'll have students, and I'll say, play me a G major scale. Right? Okay. And I'll put on the metronome, and I'll say, well, play it, and I'll play it in half notes and make it sound good. Doesn't that sound nice? Big, fat, round notes. None of this? Right? People in such a hurry to think about techniques and stuff that they forget it's the sound, it's music. At a certain point, it's just supposed to sound good, right? And the bass is, of course, the most important instrument in the band. You guys know that, right? Of course it is. Because the bass is what unites the harmony and the melody, right? If you've got a guitar player playing this, C, E, and G, and I decide to play a C, okay, it's a major chord. Now, if they're playing the same note, and I play an A, it's a minor note. I have the power in this finger, listen right here, to establish the tonality, major or minor, me. And if you're playing a blues and the bass player goes to the 4 chord, it sounds like the song goes to the 4 chord and everyone else messed up. That's the power of the bass. And I love, all this tapping and stuff. What I'm doing here as a solo bassist is much different than your role in a band as a bassist, which is to hold everything together. I guarantee that my good friend Victor Bailey, when he went to audition for Madonna, he didn't walk in and go, because then he'd be one of those guys you see on YouTube that knows all the licks but's never actually played with another human being outside of their parents' bedroom. So, man, get a good teacher and play with people and have a good time. You know, people of all ages and all skills. It's the main thing I say is just get out there and play. You know, you don't have to spend all your time in your basement or working or in the woodshed. Even when I was going to Berkeley, I was playing in top 40 bands and wedding bands. You know, it's just about getting out and playing music and meeting people and the joy of playing it. Every gig, there is no perfect gig, and it's just a chance to get out and play. And by getting out and playing, you're going to meet other people that play. You're going to make some money. You're going to meet people that hire bands, and it's just the sheer fun of it. And so get a good teacher, buy my instructional videos, and you'll be all set.
One back here.
Yeah.
Hi, Stu.
Hey.
What do you enjoy more, playing live or being in the studio? And what are some examples or highlights in your career of either?
You know, playing live is always just when you got a good pull from the audience. There's nothing quite like that. And being in the studio is you know, like I said, I've been playing bass for 40 years, and I honestly think that I'm starting to get it, and that I'm getting better. No, but I'm serious, man. I have challenges and I have things I'm working for, and every time I play, I think I'm still getting better, and I'm still engaged to get better, which is why I keep doing it. I listen back to a lot of my early recordings, and I think the important thing to remember when you're recording is that being in the studio is not an exercise in not making a mistake, right? It's a record. It's just a recording of how you played a song on a certain day. And it took me a long time to come to the comfort space where when you're in the studio, you got to sweat. You can't sit there and think, oh, I've got to be in tune and I can't mess up this note, because then the recordings will sound timid, right? You want to capture performance, and believe me that the mistakes are the good parts. You know, if I can let myself go in a recording and play something I've never played before, that's usually where the good stuff comes from. And that's why sometimes you need a producer. When they say you can't see the forest for the trees. I have 3 records out with a band called GHS with Frank Gambale and Steve Smith, the Fusion Records, Fusion with a capital F-U, because we knew that no one was going to buy these records. So we just did it to really challenge ourselves, and we just say, you know, what's the most complicated song we can write? I know we'll have the 1 chord in 5 and the 4 chord in 7 and most stupid scales, and it was just absolutely challenging and wonderfully rewarding. And so one night we're recording, and we were going to take a break, and Steve said, we're in the studio, and he said, listen, we're all going to do like a solo track. And they said, Stu, do you have anything? I said, yeah, I've got this new song I've been working on. It's called Nostalgia. And he goes, well, let me hear it. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I said, well, it goes like this. It's not really done. And I played it. And then I'm done. And they said, great, we're finished. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, we were recording, and it was perfect. And I said, wait a minute, no, let me hear it back. And I listened back to it, and the E string's flat by like 4 cents, and the C string and the A is always fretting out, and I missed a few notes. So I said, no, okay, now we're going to record it. And I changed the strings, and I sat down there, and I said, okay, now let's play it. It was awful. And then I tried again, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And the more I listened to it, I listened to the original version. Sure, it's a little out of tune. There's some squeaks between notes, but as a whole, as a piece of music, it survives on its own. And it took me a long time to get to that place in the studio. And that's where in my home studio, and what I'm working on, I'm getting better. And I do a lot of that now. I mean, that's what I teach my students, is that to make it today as a bass player, you've got to wear a lot of hats. And I've got a website called Tracks by Stu, and people send me tracks, and I download them, and I plug my bass into the Duet, into my Apple, into Logic, and I record them, and I'm getting pretty good at it. And I send them back, and that's a big part of how I make a living. And in today's, day and age, you got to learn to keep up with technology, to make a living. That's the teacher in me speaking.
Hey, Stu.
Yeah.
I'm a big Satriani fan, and I'm just kind of curious because you've worked with some of his most classic material. Is there any collaborative process in terms of like, hey, this is pretty groovy, but we could take it to this next spot? Is there any of that, or is it pretty listening to Surfing or The Extremist or stuff like that? Was that just a singular vision on his part, or were you able to contribute some aspect besides just showing up and being awesome?
No. No, I mean, I think every record was different with Joe. With a lot of those guys, the early recordings you hear I did with Steve and Joe, they have that style of music where the good bass pretty much is just copying the rhythm guitar, which is playing eighth notes, right? So they would think, well, I can get my pick out. I have one here because I'm prepared, right? And then. So for that style of music, in their minds, it was just as valid for them to double the rhythm guitar part. Because to me, it still sounds like a guitar player playing the bass, even if it's the same notes. So the only times that I really played on, you hear like in Dreaming Number and Flying of the Blue Dream was the Balls of Law 2 when he wanted some slapping. And obviously in the early Vice stuff, which was really experimental, flexible and all that kind of stuff, there was some input. But they're, guitar players are anal retentive control freaks, and they pretty much know exactly what they want. The Crystal Planet record was pretty collaborative, and the most we did was Time Machine was the first time that Jonathan and I got in there, and All Alone a couple of tracks. But I mean, Joe's a smart guy, dude. Both those guys are incredible musicians and really intelligent guys. And I think they've got to the point where, which is I do now, when I like on just outside of Normal, I've got Satriani, I've got Robert Fripp, I've got Frank DiBali, Stanton Moore, the great drummer. And what a good band leader does is hire great musicians and let them play, right? And so I've got to a point where when I write a song, I can write it and with like Steve Smith in mind, and I could either write a drum part, or I could say, well, I'm going to bring Steve in and know that he'll be able to come up with a good part for that. So, but having said that, they're both great musicians, and I've been real fortunate. Right now, I am doing a lot of gigs in San Francisco, and I'm on the next record of a great guitar player named Carl Verheyen, and you guys know who he is. And we're going to Europe for a couple months, and we're trying to knock together some of the States. He's a great blues, rock, jazz, anything. We do these duets, and man, he's just an incredible guy. So look out for us. There they come.
I know you're big on warm-up exercises and hand health. A couple years ago, I fell on the ice on my fretting hand, and my pinky hasn't been right since, and not even my ring finger. Can you recommend any exercises or strengthening tips? Or
Boy, we should get Jeff Berlin on this. Hi, Jeff, if you're watching at home. No, there's no set answer. Definitely go get it checked out. My personal story was that I ended up after the Urge tour with some really bad wrist pain, and I went to a bunch of different doctors, and they all told me something completely different. One guy said it was carpal tunnel, one said it was arthritis, one said it was tendonitis, one said they're going to cut my arm open and put a tendon for my ankle. That's why they call it practicing medicine, because they have no clue what they're doing, right? So Billy Sheehan actually turned me on to a chiropractor, Arlen Roth, and that started my decades-long search into holistic healing and Reiki and yoga and meditation, all that Northern California hippy-dippy stuff that has kept me alive and relatively healthy for these many years. And I highly recommend that, stretching out before you play is just so important. There's a friend of mine named Dr. Randall Kurtz. He's a chiropractor, bass player in Chicago. He has a book called Injury Prevention and Proper Techniques for Bass Players. And it's a wonderful book. So my problem was, I thought it was my wrist, but my problem was with my neck, and I won't get too hippy-dippy on you, but I'll just go for a few minutes. But the analogy is that your spine, everything goes through your spine. And it's like the alignment of your car, your tires. If one tire's out of line, the whole car's going to shake like that, right? So the spine's the same thing, right? So posture, breathing. Your neck is supposed to have the curve here that mimics the curve down here. I had a reverse curve. I don't know why that ever happened. And I used to wear my bass up here like a Jeff Berlin bow tie, reading charts and stuff like that. So I do exercises to do my neck, and okay, I'll let you in on the secret. The most important thing, okay, everyone just kind of relax your shoulders, all right, sit up straight. This is the secret to everything. You ready? Breathe in. Now breathe out. That's it. That'll be $50 a piece. That's the secret to everything, I tell you. And I used to be one of these guys. I was so nervous when I'd play. I used to get so tense. And if you're playing and you're going, oh man, it's only 4 bars to that lick. I blew it last week. If I don't play it right, Steve's going to get all mad at me. Here it comes. Wow, man. You can't play anything like that, right? So I wrote a song actually on my first record called Simple Dreams. To teach myself to breathe and play. And I have students when I was at MI, and I had this one guy, John, and I said, okay, he'd be playing, it was just so tense, it was making me feel awful. And I said, here, I want you to play a 2-octave G major scale and breathe in on the way up and breathe out on the way down. He almost killed himself, sitting in a chair, trying to do that exercise. So, man, it's just simple things like that. And I'm telling you, the key to life, if I know anything, is that stress will kill you, and you just got to relax and think happy thoughts and be happy and not be mad at anybody. That's what I'm preaching. So there you go. Well, speaking of which, I guess I'm going to play another piece and then go have some water. And I'm going to be hanging out. Like I said, I've got some CDs for sale, and I'll be willing to sign and just talk to anybody if you have any questions. You're too shy to say, well, who does play faster, Steve or Joe? I'd like to thank the guys at Washburn. We've got the big wigs from Washburn here today. We've got Barry and Gil. Please give them a hand. And we've got Nick Ellingsworth here, who was like the product manager who's worked with me really closely in designing the models. And I'm just so happy with the Washburn bass. They sound great, don't they? Yeah. And they're really good. We're working. We got some good ideas about where to go next. But these, man, I was really pleased with the affordability of these basses. They're great, and they've been very, very good to me. And I'm here tomorrow. I'm going to give a little spiel for the Sweetwater guys. So again, thanks to everyone here at Sweetwater, Nick and Jimmy and Jeff. Everything was just awesome. And it really is nice to be back in the Midwest. It makes me feel home. So thanks for letting me play. And I'll be hanging out as long as y'all want afterwards. So God bless y'all, and thanks for joining. Thanks again to everyone here at Sweetwater. Thanks to Pat and everybody and everyone who watched for guitars. Thanks for coming. I'll see you guys outside in a few minutes.
Keep it going for Stu Hamm.
Thank you.
Stu Hamm.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thanks very much to Stu. That it all up.
All right,
Thank you, sir, for coming out. I want to once again thank Washburn, our new partners, for bringing Stu out, and we're really excited to start our partnership with them. Want to thank everyone at home for watching, and you folks will have an opportunity to meet and greet Stu right outside here at the Performance Theater in just a few minutes, so we'll see you then. Thanks a lot for coming, everyone.
I'm Kenny Burgle. Thanks for coming, you guys. You're at a great night. First of all, we're doing a live web broadcast for So Scream Loudly. And everybody, and you can text your guys that they can watch it live right now at sweetwater.com under live events. It's awesome. Anybody who's been here for the first time? Who's here for the first time? Awesome. Thank you. And thank everybody for being here. You guys are why we're here. And of course, Stu Hamm is why you guys are here, and we're going to get there. It's really awesome. But first, I do want to say, please don't. Has anybody been to Gear Fest before? Please come 21st and 22nd in a couple weeks. It's going to be awesome. Tons of bass players. Check the website for all the great stars and workshops and stuff. It's going to be just awesome. Stu asked that there wouldn't be any flashes tonight, and also no video. They are going to, although, like I said, we're videoing the whole thing, and when you get home, at some point, you'll be able to see it on the screen as well. And really, I don't really need to introduce Stu Hamms, one of the most recorded bass players in life. He's with Steve Vai and Eric Johnson, Satriani, The Urge, I'm missing on and on and on. It's just tremendous. And what's really, really cool about this is, I want to immediately thank Washburn Guitars. It's our new line. Let's give it a hand for Washburn. Beautiful basses and guitars. We finally are carrying Washburn. It's really cool. Fact is, you guys probably know Greg Baum, one of our local guys in the retail store. He was a luthier for Washburn for many years, actually. So we're very proud to have Washburn on board at Sweetwater, and they're great. So, that said, without any further ado, let's give it up. A warm Fort Wayne welcome for Mr. Stu Hamm. Come on, Stu. Here he comes.
Hey.
Here he comes.
What's going on?
Oh, my. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. How's it going?
Yeah, man. Rock on.
Hey, guys, what's up? Thank you for coming this evening. It's good to see you all, even though I can't see you. And hello to all the friends over there on the World Wide Web. How exciting. My name is Stu, and I play the bass. So I'm going to play my basses and tell some stories and take some questions, and we'll take it from there, if that's all right with y'all. Is all right? All right. I'd like to open with an old English drinking song that was popularized by Jimi Hendrix. Thank you.